This is chapter 43, the competitive environment, A-level business, Edexcel, theme 2, and this is the final chapter of theme 2. Learning objective, competition and market size. So, before we begin, let's talk about the competitive environment. When we talk about the competitive environment in a business or in the business sense, we're talking about rival companies or rival businesses or rival firms in the market that you operate in as a business. One of the most important external influences faced by a business is the threat posed by its competitors, large firms, small firms, or even a number of small firms or a number of large firms in a market. Now that we know what the competitive environment is, let's get to the determinants of this environment, determinants of this competitive environment. By determinants, I mean factors of this competition. So it's dependent on the number and relative size of businesses in the market in which you operate in, the extent of barriers to entry, so how easily can you penetrate that market, how easily can you set up a business in a specific market selling particular goods and services, the extent to which products can be differentiated, so how easily can you develop your own product range and set up a business or a company or a firm which is relatively similar to another firm in a market and develop your own product range and come out. The knowledge that buyers and sellers possess. So do they have perfect information? Do you have perfect information as a producer? Degree of interrelationship. So your interdependence or the firm's interdependence or on one another. Your business interdependence on another business. And finally, we have legal factors, so regulations against collusion or cartel and, just government intervention. So all of these factors are called determinants of competition. So these factors, these things make it more competitive or less competitive for a business to operate in a specific market. Impact on businesses of a competitive environment. So what impact does it have on a business of operating in a competitive environment? So obviously when you think about it, the first thing that probably pops into your head would be it will lower your profit. So profit. And the second thing would probably be price. You're gonna have to make sure that your price matches your rivals. So two most important things are price and profit. And next, we have communication to our customers. Next, we have innovation. So how quickly can you innovate? How quickly can you come up with new ideas and develop a new range of products? Product range again. And finally, marketing. So how can you come up with different ways to distribute your product? How many different various different ways can you market your products to your consumers? Or if your rival's doing something, you have to do it as well. If they're utilizing social media, you must do it as well. In general, this is general practice, copying your rivals, because you're going to lose customers if you don't. Next, you've got competition and market size. Now, the size of a market would generally refer to the number of customers and businesses that buy and sell within that market. Now, there are different types of markets. You've got global markets that are the largest markets in which businesses can compete, and they're worldwide and they're global, and it's been growing rapidly ever since the launch of e-commerce. Then you've got national markets, just nationwide. You have regional markets, which are fairly smaller than global and national markets. And finally, you've got local markets. So these are the different types of markets that you need to know about as a business student. Finally, you've got operating in large markets. So what does it mean for a business to be operating in a large market? Competition is high. You have global markets and you have national markets. These are both large markets in which you have lots of competitors in which you have to compete with which you have to compete with, and you have lots of opportunities, and you have a large customer base as well, and you might have the threat of even being driven out, and your entries to barriers to entry might be really high as well, because potentially there are a few number of firms that are large enough, and those firms are the ones that are actually accumulating, that have the largest market share. So a good example of that would be the UK's grocery industry, within where there are only a few firms which share most of the majority of the market share. So you've got Sainsbury's, Aldi, Lidl, Asda, Tesco, etc. So these few large firms hold a majority of the share in the grocery industry. So that means the barriers to entry are quite high, and you could be driven out, and you'd have a number of large firms as your rivals if you try to operate in this industry. So competition is relatively high in large markets. Next, you've got operation in smaller markets. So with smaller markets, you don't have the potential threat of having too many rivals, or having too much competition, or having a high competition, and barriers to entry. But you do have that question: will your sales volume be sufficient for a desired return? What this means is, will you make enough to get your desired rate of return? Whatever investment that you do, will you be able to get a viable return on that investment? Because as such, you're operating in a fairly small market, and you might not make that much. And whilst there aren't any barriers to entry, but that's potentially because it's a really small market, and no one actually wants to come in and join and get profits, or there isn't enough for anyone to come in and take. So it depends. Maybe the market is too small for you to go and serve it. So will sales volume be sufficient for a desired return? So that's the question that you have to answer. Another little problem that could come in operating small markets is that you might have a fear that a larger, stronger rival might enter the market and take away all the custom. So you might be driven out by a larger, stronger competitor who has the funds for advertisement and marketing, and who has a higher, bigger budget, and all sorts of promotion. And the costs are likely to be lower because they can exploit economies of scale and so on. So that's also the fear with operating in smaller markets. Well, with that's the end of the final chapter of Theme 2, A-Level Business Edexcel. In the next video, we're going to start Theme 3 of A-Level Business Edexcel.